You were listening to From Sobriety to Recovery with Jesse Mogul. Let's get to the show. Welcome back to From Sobriety to Recovery. I am your host, Jesse Mogul. I am in addiction recovery. We're going to do ourselves a little sober shorty today because I am exhausted. It has been a long month of June, and we are just a day or two away from July 1st, and I cannot tell you how fast it feels that summer is already clicking right along. We just had the solstice, longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. You guys had the longest night of your year down in the Southern Hemisphere, and I already feel like summer is almost over. Here comes football practices opening up. Later on in July, Tour de France is coming, the Olympics are coming, and so before you know it, it's gonna be September, and and we're all gonna be talking about fall stuff, and I'm gonna be like, but I want to go back to when it was warm, and I have celebrated some really cool stuff over the course of this month of June. My anniversary with my girlfriend, whom I live with here in North Alabama, where we've got ourselves a nice little home, and recently ripped out all the concrete in our back patio and had new concrete laid down because we want to build this entire pergola thing, and that's exciting. And I'll tell you, as someone who spent his entire 20s bouncing around from school to school to school in the throes of my addiction, and really just crawled to that graduation stage at the University of Florida, and was just relieved that I was able to put that together after 12 years, and then spending over a decade in Los Angeles doing the Hollywood thing. And y'all know the sports writing and the morning talk show hosting and the red carpet hosting and the improv and the stand-up and all that other Hollywood stuff I was doing, and not to mention just drinking and partying myself to utter obliteration. When I got sober, I don't think in a million years I would have fathomed having just this beautiful, wonderful home that we have, and that one day I would be the kind of person who would voluntarily choose to rip out concrete and have new concrete poured simply to build a backyard pergola. And if you haven't ever Googled pergola, Pergola, I think, it's not like it sounds so much fancier than it actually is. It really is just like this back patio thing with a roof on it, but we're gonna make it by hand off some blueprints that we bought off Etsy. And like, who the hell am I? Like, I remember making fun of my family with my therapist. You remember Melissa from Kaiser? I used to talk about her a lot back in the day whenever I was seeing her. And I would make fun of my family for talking about mattresses and pillows. I'm like, who does that? They talked about mattresses for like 30 minutes, Melissa. It was the most boring conversation. I'm over here trying to talk about the brain and neuro-linguistic programming and how our thoughts create our feelings, and then that's what seeps into our reality and becomes our identity statements, and they're talking about mattresses. And I'm not saying I've recently had a conversation that went on for 30 minutes about mattresses, but I have definitely had a conversation about mattresses that would have gone far too long for that version of me a handful of years ago. And now I'm talking about pergolas, and I'm like, oh, and we could build a barbecue area, but we got to make sure we get this really thick plastic like I see at the restaurants, so when we know a storm's coming, we can roll it down and we can secure it tight, because I don't want my smoker that my parents bought me as a housewarming gift to get wet and start getting rusty, because then I'll have to get out there with some Rust-Oleum and a toothbrush, and I don't want to have to do that, so we got to make sure we protect it. And even as I repeat that conversation out loud, the whole thing sounds like some made-up shit that drunk Jesse would have created on an improv stage back at Second City Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard. And now it's the kind of stuff that I find enjoyable about life. I broke my lawnmower, mowing back all these humongous weeds because we got this whole ditch thing in our easement that we're trying to figure out. And now I'm on the phone with the county and trying to figure out what culpability they have with this drainage system that was built by the developer, but it's got a manhole cover that says Madison County, and so I'm doing shit. Broke my mower. So now I'm on YouTube and Amazon buying pieces to replace this thing, special pliers and shit. I mean, I seriously, I look in the mirror sometimes and I'm like, who in the hell is this person looking back at me? And it's just fascinating that this relationship has blossomed into something. Well, yes, there are certainly times where I just look at her and I'm sure she looks at me like, what the hell was I thinking? And I'm not saying that we all have that. I'm not going to sit here and try to project my relationship feelings on anybody else because to each his own, right? I have no idea what your relationship's like unless I know you and you listen to this show. And even then, do I really know what your relationship's like, or do I just understand your interpretation of your relationship as you tell me about your relationship, right? So there's a lot of projections and deflections, and we don't really know. All we know is what we know about ourselves and how we see life through our own perspective. And mind you, that's just being weighed down by a hella ton of biases anyways. And I say all of that to preface this statement. I have no doubt we both look at each other like, what in the hell is this person talking about? But yet, we love each other dearly. We have blossomed this relationship into, just a fantastic experience with one another. We have our anniversary. We have this house. We spent like 6 hours one day completely digging out this entire area next to the house by our fence so that we could put our recycle bin cans and our garbage cans in this area. And we laid down paver stones with sand and shit. Like, this is some serious... I should have recorded this crap for TikTok, but I just get into the projects and don't want to screw around with videotaping them. But the hilarity of the whole thing is just that we're doing this, and all just so that the cans would lay flat up against right by this fence. Like, anybody driving by wouldn't necessarily even recognize that this has been done, other than they might say they wouldn't know that the garbage cans used to be at a very extreme angle to the point where we had to put like stones underneath them so that they wouldn't like tip over. They would see it and think, well, that's cool, if they even thought that. But anyways, this is the kind of stuff that I do with that 10 seconds of free time that I'm able to locate every single week. And so a beautiful relationship, excellent anniversary. We went to the Rolling Stones. I haven't told you guys about this story yet. And I think because I'm exhausted, I mean, seriously, I'm just whipped. And so we're going to make this we're going to, talk about the expansions of my life and how I've been able to celebrate these little moments. And for those of you who might be new to the show and think, well, this is not bringing me a whole lot of value, I can assure you, if you listen, I will say something that will inspire you. I promise. Little juicy nuggets in there somewhere. Otherwise, go back and listen to the last 2 episodes I did on routines. They are amazing. And don't take this show as like an all-around synopsis of what this is normally covering. But for those of you who have been listening for a long time, who've heard me talk about the anniversary coming up or the Rolling Stones show or my 48th birthday, this is your chance to hear that, because I frankly just don't have any more bandwidth to try to think of something else to talk about. Although I did create an amazing amount of show notes for how cultural biases can play a role in our addiction recovery. I just don't feel like turning my brain on that much right now. So let's get back to this Rolling Stones concert, because we did drive all the way to Atlanta, get a hotel like a mile and a half away from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the Atlanta Falcons NFL football team plays, to go see the Rolling Stones. And I love live music. And today I gave a speech, presentation, if you will, at an addiction recovery center here in Madison, Alabama, where I live. And one of the people there, I don't know if whatever I said something that instigated him that I knew a mutual friend who also likes to go to fish. And this is somebody who happened to sit with me for all 3 fish shows last summer when they did their run here in Huntsville. And so he asked me, he's like, how long should I wait to go to live music? It's really an important thing to me, and I know it's important to you. And so got into a quick little conversation about how I've given enough of things back in my active addiction. I gave enough things that I loved to addiction. I gave relationships, girlfriends, best friends, relationships with family, hobbies, passions, interests, purpose-driven ideas that I really wanted to follow through on. I gave all of those willingly. Not always like consciously, here addiction, why don't you take photography from me? I don't really like to do that shit anyways. I'd like to sit in this dark-ass bar and make up a bunch of shit with people who I barely know and talk about things that I'll never actually do because it's more enjoyable to just daydream. But as long as I'm drunk, everything's fine. I didn't actually turn to addiction and say all that shit. But when the opportunity was to go out and do something else besides being wasted, I certainly chose wasted more often than not. And so I've already given enough things to addiction. I am ready to take things back from addiction. And that's what I was telling this gentleman, that while we want to create a bubble for ourselves and be mindful of, especially in our early stages, about what we're reintroducing into our lives, we don't want to continue giving things that we love to addiction in our sobriety and recovery. And he even told a story about how an addiction recovery center he was at down in Florida, and then another one in Tennessee, and both places had, or was it one? It's not important how many. What's important is what was told to him. That somebody in one of these meetings said, to the effect of, oh, well, you used to get wasted at concerts. Well, then you can't go to concerts anymore. And somebody else in this meeting with this gentleman that was at my presentation today had told the speaker, well, I used to get high on the mountain and go snowboarding. And her response back was, well, then you don't get to go snowboarding anymore because you've associated that with being intoxicated and using, and you can't go back and do the things that you used to do intoxicated. Now you've got to do totally new things, and even if you loved those things, c'est la vie. And you all know me. Ain't fucking no way I would ever say that to somebody. Absolutely freaking not, right? Just because you liked bowling and you were drunk all the time, or roller skating, you were drunk all the time, or hiking and you were stoned all the time, and now you don't want to be drunk or stoned or high or whatever, then let's figure out a way to get you back up on that mountain, to get you into that, mosh pit, or get you up into the stands so that you can enjoy the things that you've always enjoyed, just not being intoxicated anymore. Like, I fucking love football. And if somebody told me, yeah, man, you can be sober, but you don't get to go to live music anymore, and you don't get to watch football anymore. I'd be like, am I living in some colony on Mars that doesn't have Wi-Fi because on the dark side of the moon? Because there's about the only 2 places where you're going to be able to pry live music and football from my cold, dying hand. And so what was interesting was when he asked this question, I was like, well, yeah, let's create a bubble, and let's make sure that when you first go back into the live music that you're going with some people who can support your sobriety and recovery, who will understand if you have a craving or if there's something emotional happening in the moment that you'd be able to discuss with them. Go with some people who would be your support system, like I did when I went and saw that 3-day Grateful Dead run at Wrigley Field, and all my boys from Ball State University were there. They knew I was sober. I'd announced it on Facebook land. I'd contacted them all. So they knew that I was showing up to be sober and to enjoy the hell out of these 3 Grateful Dead shows. And it was, oh my God. There was this part where it went from China Doll into Terrapin into U.S. Blues closed the set. My brain doesn't want to remember what that third song was, but just the fact that they went from China Doll into Terrapin, 2 of my favorite songs by them, blew my mind. In fact, they did that recently at the Sphere in Vegas, and I was just like, oh, God, I didn't realize that they pair those songs together multiple times. I'm like, oh, why couldn't I have been there for that? But I had created a bubble, and I went, and it was beautiful, and it was amazing. And I tell you all of that, one, to make sure you understand that when you guys get sober out there, that it's going to be imperative that over some course of time, you figure out what it was that you loved doing in your life. And if you had associated that with alcohol and drugs, then let's start working you backwards to figure out how you can release that anchor, and then you can move forwards going back into these things that you love and being able to do so with sobriety and recovery as your guiding light, as your lighthouse, if you will. And so where we are, going to Atlanta for a Rolling Stones show. Now, this is like my 150th, 200th concert sober. So, okay, that might be slightly more. Let's see. I average about 20, 25 a year. I'm 7.5 years sober. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're definitely somewhere in that 130, 150 range, because I average about 20, 25 shows a year. And so, like this year, I think I've already got tickets for well into the 20s. And the shows aren't even done being announced. So more than likely I'll get closer to 30. But I think right now I'm sitting at about 23 that I'll go see, and I think I've already been to 5, 6, or 7. I got a pretty hardcore stretch coming up middle of July to like end of September where I'll see like 15 different shows. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, we're talking about Stone Temple Pilots, Live, Keane, Weezer, Kings of Leon. Those are just the ones that come off the top of my head. Styx and Foreigner, that's going to be pretty sweet. John Pride, I think, is a country guy I'm going to go see with my girl that we're excited about. Did I mention Weezer? God, I cannot wait to see Weezer. So anyways, I digress. New Kids on the Block, July 17th. That's going to be hilarious. Paul Abdul, DJ Jazzy Jeff. No Fresh Prince, but he might show up, rumor has it, and just start slapping the shit out of people. And that would be pretty awesome. And if that does occur, I hope I get it on film, and I'll post it to nowhere, because I don't do social media very often. I'm rambling now. Reel it in, Jess. Rolling Stones. Check this out. I'm going to get my second bottle of water. And there's a lot of cool stories that I could tell you about the Rolling Stones, but I want to tell you how we got free tickets to go sit in the lower bowl when we were all the way up in the nosebleeds, sitting next to Bob Uecker. I already have a bottle of water in my hand. My girl does drink, so she had gotten herself a beer, and she comes back, and I have about half a bottle of water left. And it's set break between the Hounds. Oh, I can't remember their name now. They opened up. They were absolutely fantastic. They got this song, Half My Fault, that absolutely was amazing. And the Rolling Stones will be coming on shortly. So I'm like, maybe I should get another bottle of water. I'm feeling a little dehydrated. She's like, yeah, just go ahead and get it now. So I walk over to get a bottle of water where she had gone to get her beer, because she said the lady was really nice. And I wanted to go meet this lady and give her my dollar tip. And so while I'm doing that, Jen's just sort of standing out there where everybody's walking past, and this dude who works for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium comes up and is like, yeah, you having a good time? And she's like, yeah, we're super excited. A little bummed that where our seats are at, there's actually this humongous light kit system on the floor that's completely blocking our view of the stage. So we're only going to be able to see the band by watching the concert on the big screens that are to the left and the right of the stage. She's like, so that's a bummer, because we're really excited about this show. And he goes, well, would you like a free upgrade? And she's like, sure. What do we have to do? Thinking it was some sort of contest or there was some sort of fee associated with it. And he's like, nothing at all. And here you go. And dude hands us these 2 seats down in the 100s. And so I walk up to her, and she's like, some dude just gave us free upgraded seats. And I'm like, yeah, let me see these tickets. And she shows them to me, and they look legit, but ain't nobody just handing out free tickets. Come on. We got miracled at a Rolling Stones show. Like, that happened at Fish and Dead shows in the 90s. That shit ain't happening in 2024. So I run back up to the chair, and I grab my sweater just in case. And I'm like, okay, let's just go down there and let's check this out. Well, sure enough, we go down there, and it's legit. And everybody else around us had also been miracled by the same dude. So we went from nosebleeds, stage blocked. This dude next to me refused to move his arms, had his elbows all up in what little space I had, because you know how stadium seats are. It was just, we're up in like the 328s. This is not an area where most people are going to stand up because you're so far away from the stadium, versus those lower bowl seats where people are going to stand up because you're so much closer and just the energy. And I'm always the guy paying for those 300 level seats because I want to go to so many shows. So I'd rather pay $50 and be up there and just be there to hear the music than pay $250 to be in the 100s and have less money to go to more shows, right? That's my methodology anyways. But now I understand why people pay to be in those 100s, because you are dancing and singing and you're up on your feet, and especially that we're an entire section of people who had also been miracled by this cool dude who worked for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, probably a marketing rep or something, and I don't know why they had all these seats available in this one section. Like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. But seriously, it was so sweet. And we were so close, and it was just the Rolling Stones, and it was like a greatest hit set list, all the songs that we would want to hear. I mean, just think of them, Fade to Black was definitely high on our list, Sympathy for the Devil. Of course, we wanted to hear Satisfaction and stuff like that, but, just, fuck, it was so cool. And that we got miracled these seats, and that this concert was sandwiched in between our anniversary and my 48th birthday, and we really, made that the big thing for the anniversary and the birthday. And so just absolutely fantastic. And so, again, I love live music. It is literally what fuels me. I'm always looking forward to the next show. Even I know, New Kids on the Block. I mean, that is definitely a girlfriend-chosen concert coming up on the 17th of July. But I'm not dissing that. Like, I remember Step by Step, ooh, baby, I just don't know the words. I don't know the words. I just know that they say step by step at some point in the song. We got the Tour de France coming, the Olympics coming. I might go see Postmodern Jukebox in Nashville. AJR's coming up. Super, super stoked about AJR. Styx, Foreigner, got Train, STP and Live. That's going to be super dope. Don't forget that I also work at the Orion, where a lot of these shows are being held. So I'll be a fan of the ones I really like, and I'll just go bartend for the ones I don't care so much about. And that's super cool. Like Lauryn Hill and the Fugees just got announced. I'm totally working that gig. That will just be so cool to see all those people enjoy themselves. Weezer, we got Aerosmith coming up. I already mentioned Kings of Leon. Keen, Missio's coming to town. I might go see them. On the fence about that one. 21 Pilots. I'm definitely bartending the Billy Strings shows. We're going to go see Everclear in these caves out in Pelham. That's so cool. And I think that's right now, that would be the last one. That's sort of where I end my season, would be on October 27th, seeing Everclear in the Pelham Caves. So lots of shows, super awesome. If there's something that you love, don't let it go away. Don't just willingly give it to your addiction as you move forward in your sobriety and recovery. Figure out where in your program you can start adding some cool stuff that will allow you to surround yourself with a support system that can help guide you back into that world. Like I said, I know a lot of people like to go bowling or pickleball or whatever the activity might be, hiking or go-karting. I don't care what, fucking photography. And you used to smoke serious amounts of dope in the woods and think that bunny rabbits were talking to you as you took photos of them. Whatever, man. Just let's take the intoxicating substance out, but let's figure out how to get you back into that activity sober, because I would hate for in your sobriety and recovery for you to not have access to the things that you've always loved doing. And that leads us to my 48th birthday, which I seriously am blessed for all the birthdays, because I'm on God's time here, the universe's time. However you feel comfortable hearing about that divinity that allows us to take breaths every day, I'm on borrowed time. And what I've done with these 7.5 years has been absolutely just a blast. Spectacular, just such a learning experience, from the neuro-linguistic programming, to being able to teach that stuff now, to giving workshops and presentations at addiction recovery centers, at businesses who want to know how to, get people to communicate better at their meetings, to writing the College Success Habits book, which I still slightly regret not being a sobriety to recovery book, but that's looking to come out next year. On top of my TED Talk, I've started lining that up. I don't know if I've talked about that much, and I'll just sort of drop that little breadcrumb there, and we'll discuss that more later. But certainly, there's that happening. Just fantastic things coming up. And it's been, I slow down and breathe. I'm blessed that drunk, intoxicated Jesse had enough wherewithal to get that degree, to keep his shit together enough to go over to Singapore and live in Western Europe and work in the Bahamas and get a chance to go visit Havana, and then move to South Florida with my buddy Craig and enjoyed that while that was available, and then move out to Los Angeles and just dabble in all the cool things that LA offered, to be able to have experienced so much of Los Angeles. And, when the 48th birthday hit, I think it just reminded me to, it's going to be like that whole Carpe Diem, seize the day thing. I think of that Robin Williams movie, The Dead Poet Society, where he's got everybody standing up on the desks and yelling Carpe Diem and shit. And it's just like, when I lived in Los Angeles, I remember making a very concerted effort to go see all the cool stuff that maybe one day I wouldn't have a chance to ever go see. Realizing that I really wasn't lining myself to live there forever. And now here I am in North Alabama, and I'd gone to Nashville many, many, many times for shows, for zoos, Chattanooga for zoos, Birmingham for the zoo. And I say zoo multiple times, realizing that's what I did on my 48th birthday, is we drove up to Nashville, went to the zoo, then we went to this really big aquarium-based restaurant called Aquarium. I know, very clever. Had this huge aquarium right in the middle of it. They gave us this table with just a beautiful view of the entire aquarium, and that was my 48th birthday. And just the right amount of awesome. Right? Yes, I would love to have had my Ball State friends around. I would love to have had some of my University of Florida friends around. Definitely the two guys I kept in touch with from Orlando. It would have been great to have them around. And certainly, the girlfriend and I are starting to talk about what my 50th birthday could be here in a couple years, and how I might be able to get some people together. Maybe we go on like a cruise or meet up in a really cool city or something like that. So it could be a celebration with the people I love. And I can't help but just remind you out there that when you turn this year older, like I did, 48, like I don't feel any different than I did the day before. Certainly, my knees are a little bit shakier, and my back is more mindful when I pick things up. But overall, we all are. If we talk to Shrek, he says we're onions. If we talk to Donkey, he says we're cake. But either way, we're layered. And every single year that we grow, it's like we're a tree with the rings. Like we're just growing another ring. We're just growing another layer. And there's this bark on the outside, right, that protects us from the elements. But the growth on the inside never stops. And we're just layering ourselves. So somewhere inside of me is still that 21-year-old with his heart broken moving to Orlando who doesn't know what he's going to do with his life. There's that 18-year-old who just watched his parents get divorced and thought the life he was going to have in college just be shattered into pieces. And while looking for something to believe in, somebody introduces him to marijuana, and then LSD, and then cocaine, all around live music, which I dabbled in, but not to the extreme in which drugs and alcohol led me there. And somewhere inside of me is that 25-year-old who's getting run out of Orlando, having burned so many bridges. It would have been like the great San Francisco or Chicago fire couldn't have compared to the way I left Orlando, and just the state of confusion and sadness and sorrow, and just I just left this wake of just people behind me that were very much over Jesse's bullshit. And then to get to University of Florida and try to reel it in long enough to get a degree to move out to Los Angeles. Somewhere in there is that 30-year-old who doesn't know how to go into the auditions the right way and keeps being told no, even though he thinks he's got the talent to be told yes. And then to finally be able to scrape enough of my maturity together to start actually getting some gigs that, while showing me that there was a light at the end of the tunnel was never quite wide enough, nor the light quite bright enough to lure me away from my addiction. And, here I am at, 40 years old, blacking out on my 40th birthday, no friends, no party, nobody I think even barely knew it was my birthday other than the Facebook. got the girl I was seeing at the time broke up with me on my 40th birthday. And I went up to the bar and blacked out within minutes and, came to at like 7 or 8 p.m. and was like, well, that was one for the books. 40, it's supposed to be the big one. It's supposed to be the one people care about. And mine just was nothingness. And then that was just, here we are almost 2 months later. That's when I blew up my leg skydiving. And then, 6 months later, I'm checking myself into Kaiser because the drinking and the drugging just got to be too much. And then we start adding layers and rings or more icing to the cake of life. And now I get to enjoy it is sobriety and recovery and announcing to Facebook land that I was sober 6 months on my 41st birthday and just walking down the ocean and hearing that water. That popped up on Facebook as a reminder on my 48th birthday. And then each subsequent birthday and the friends I made and the growth I was having and just the world that NLP has opened me up to, and Matt Browning, my mentor, the things he's helped me realize that I'm capable of and worthy to earn for myself. And they just keep layering upon layering upon layering, and every little version of me is still in there, every little heartbreak, every little sorrow, and I'm starting to get goosebumps. So something about what I'm saying is supposed to be said right now, and just the sadness and the sorrow and the suffering and the trauma, it's all mixed in there with the happiness and the glee and the joy and the exuberation, and it's visceral, it's physiological, it lights me up. Everything, give me the entire taste of the rainbow of emotional spectrum. To be able to experience that at 48, to realize that I'm on borrowed time, that this second or third or fourth or seventh life where I'm not a quadriplegic, that I'm not blown into a straw in a wheelchair because of how many times I bounce my face off of an immovable object. It's astounding that I'm here, that I'm even capable of doing the things that I'm capable of. And I cannot not stress upon you enough that wherever you're at in your journey, if it's something that you want, you will find a way if you're willing and dedicated to focusing your attention to it. The addiction is not more powerful than you. It is your thinking and feelings about the addiction that have you convinced it's more powerful than you. You are a powerful force. We are humans. We've moved mountains. We've reached the moon. Hell, we're going to one day live on fucking Mars. Its capability is not something that should be doubted by us, but it is that fortitude, it is that desire, that discipline, that willingness to push ourselves to do hard things. If you keep trying to mental gymnastics yourself about why you can't win over the addiction, then that's the addiction just convincing you can't beat it. It's like literally sitting there watching a magician do some sleight of hand shit, and you see that he's just tossing the bunny rabbit over his shoulder, but you're just so convinced that if you focus on the hand that the magic trick is real, that you don't want to see that the man behind the mirror is just pulling a bunch of strings and you're just the puppet. But you can cut those strings. You can choose a different way. The addiction is not more powerful than you are. You have just convinced yourself that it is. And whenever I run into a force that I think is immovable in my sobriety and recovery, I just realize that sometimes it's not through. It might be over. It might be around. It might be under. But where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm not saying this as one of those bullshit statements like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. Because that is rude. And that is disrespectful to your trauma, to your suffering, to your lived experiences. Because I don't know what you've been through. So for me to say, well, because I've done it, you should be able to do it, is dick. But I will tell you this, that because I've done it, it shows you that it's possible. Because other people have done it, it shows you that it's possible. And where there is possibility, there is hope. And where there is hope, there is will. And where there is will, there is a strength and a determination to push forward and try. Try today. Do today. Be today. I was talking to one of my friends, CRSS guy, Jared Smith. He's going to come on the show at some point. I haven't had anybody on the show in a long time, but I think when I finally break through and start doing interviews back on the show again, I think he's definitely somebody I want to introduce you all to, because we've got some pretty amazing things that we're putting together. Like literally one of the first people I have found outside of Aubrey Pohl to actually I would want to work with. And you all know Aubrey from the NLP classes that her and I co-teach. When I met her and got to know her more through the NLP world that we were co-creating with Matt Brawning, I knew she was somebody that someday I'd be willing to work with. I knew she would be that other piece that would, right? It's like having cheesecake's really awesome, but having some strawberry compote or whatever they call that stuff where you like mix strawberries and with sugar and cook it down. Is that called compote? Somebody out there's a cook and you're either yelling, "No, stupid, it's called this." Or you're more polite and you're like, "No, sir, it's actually called this." Or I'm calling it the right thing and you're like, "Dude, you're on it. Stop talking about it so much and move on with the story." And Aubrey's my strawberry compote to the cheesecake of my sobriety and recovery. That's how I see Jared. He's got that light in him. He's got that hard-working ethic in him where other people I've met in my sobriety and recovery, they get a taste of this energy I have, and they want to be a part of it, but they don't want to pull their own weight. And I've got no time for somebody in my flock who isn't willing to take the lead and be the pace setter once in a while. It's like birds, you know how they fly in the V? One of the birds is the lead bird, and when it starts getting tired, it pulls back and it goes back to the end of the line, and it takes the draft, so it's no longer in the front. And that front bird's 100% working, but that back bird only has to work like 60-70%, and it just gets pulled along in the draft of the other birds, and every bird takes their turn at the front. And this is what allows us all to have enough energy to keep going for this arduous trek that is life. It's like the Tour de France when the teams race together. There's always somebody drafting, and then you pop off the front, you go to the back, and it's like this little circle where everybody takes their turn at the front. I only want to work with people who are willing to take their turn at the front. You should only want to have people in your life who are willing to take the lead and allow you to draft once in a while. But you don't get to sit back there on their wheel, on their wings, on their tail. At some point, it's time for you to take the lead. Pace, pace, lead. Pace, pace, lead. Draft, lead. It's a beautiful existence whenever we have a cohesive team that knows how to work together like that. Definitely this guy, Jared, who I met with today, to just talk about some of the things that we're doing. We have this whole thing where we talk about, you're a human being, not a human doing. And we do want to understand why we think what we think when we think it, why we feel what we feel when we feel it, why we do what we do when we do it, why we get the results that we get from the things that we think and feel and do. Like, why is it that you say the things you say when you say them? Like, it's important to understand the root causes, but it's also important for you to stand in yourself today and just be. Just be. And look around and think, what can I do for me to make myself healthier, to move my sobriety and recovery along? Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, career, self, relationships. Because when you have that focus on yourself, everybody else around you gets to feed off of that energy. When you better yourself, you actually, it's like a secondary gain for the people around you, that they get to also experience what you are doing, and they get to experience that jubilation and that excitement you feel for when you better yourself. And if they're a well-balanced, emotionally healthy friend or family member, they can root you along without feeling jealous or angry or disappointed in themselves for not having experienced that. Instead, they can see you as the inspiration. They can see you as the person that was like, holy shit, if Jay Mogul can do it, then that gives me hope. I can do it. And then they get to go off and be like Gumbalaya, my boy from Ball State, who saw me sober at those Grateful Dead shows and thought, holy shit, man, if Jesse can pull this off and have this good of a time, what might be on the other side of this addiction for me? And now he's gone off and do it. And now I got another buddy who's gone off and done it from our old school crew. And, while we're all at different stages of just saying goodbye to that version of ourselves, who we're saying hello to, man, it's somebody I've been dying to meet. And I was 18 years old when I was introduced to marijuana and then LSD and then cocaine. My formidable years were all influenced by the alcohol and the drugs. And now for me to get to experience this life in my 40s, sober, and the things I've been able to accomplish, yeah, it'd been really great if I would have just turned 28 and I had all these experiences under my belt. But these lived experiences I have of the trauma and the suffering, yeah, there's a reason why I fell into addiction so quickly and so fast and for such a long period. But like I was telling somebody the other day, like, I don't know if I'd go back and do anything differently. Those experiences were great. I have awesome memories. Yeah, maybe I would have done it half as much, or maybe I'd have done it twice as much. I don't know. But it happened. And I look back at those memories fondly of all those times with my boys back at Ball State, or all that fun in Orlando, even though I left that city in shame, or all those hilarious moments I had in Gainesville, all the stupid shit that I did in Los Angeles and in Vegas. I mean, yeah, part of me was like, man, that's a lot of squandered opportunity. But you know what? I'm not going to look back on things that once made me smile and constantly beat myself up about them. I had a friend at UF who had that as her quote on Facebook for years. Don't get sad about something that once made you smile. And while there are plenty of reasons why things that once made you smile might make you sad, to just stamp it with disgusting, shame, horror, blah, bad, Jesse, bad, it's not benefiting me today. I will smile. I will laugh. I'll look back at those times at the club and think, man, I was a bit of a dummy. But it was who I was in the moment, and now I am who I am today. And when I flipped over the page to 48, well, it was just a day. And I don't feel that much different than I did at 47 or 45. Do feel somewhat different than I did when I was, let's say, 33. But, you know, it's just another day. And it's inside of me is that 47, 46, 45, 38, 33, 27, 25, 17, 9, all these ages, all these versions of me, they're all in there still. And sometimes I get sad whenever I don't understand why. And sometimes I'm happy when I can't even really pinpoint the reason. Life is what we decide to make of it. And I am blessed to have been on this earth for as many years as I have. I am blessed that somewhere up there the universe said, we expect, we hope, we think there's more in you than what you've shown us so far. So we're not going to take away your ability to walk or talk or think or even your heartbeat. We're going to guardian angel the shit out of you until you finally pull your head out of your ass and figure out that there is a different way, that there's a better way. And there's something inside of you that we really want you to experience. So we will bless you time and time again with the ability to live your life, quote unquote, normal. And we won't take anything away that will be all that detrimental. And through those wounds will become scars that become the roots of your stories that will one day inspire other people to motivate themselves to make a change and to realize that they are stronger than their addiction and that they too can figure this out if they're just willing to push themselves harder than they've ever pushed themselves before. And if that's what the guardian angels were thinking when they didn't let that time I flew through my 300ZX windshield or bounce my face off the pool or almost get drowned by the ocean, bounced off my head at a Counting Crows concert, all the different times that my head slammed into something, and that could have been the time I turned into a quadriplegic. Blessed be. And I do not take the fact that I am walking on my treadmill at 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday or Friday. I just don't take any of this lightly. And I'm blessed for the breaths. I'm blessed for all the people in my life. I'm blessed for the tribe and for the addiction recovery centers that have me come speak there, and for the listeners like you who stay tuned even when I promised a sober surety, and here we are 43 minutes in. Somewhere out there is something I have said today that is exactly what you needed to hear. And I look forward to hundreds more of these. We're coming up on that 297 to 300 when we're really going to start to ramp ourselves up for the big launch on YouTube. If you'd like to know more about how to work with me, if you think that there's something about what I say that could help you in your addiction recovery journey, and you'd like to figure out how to be in the tribe so you could be supported by other listeners to the show, if you'd like to figure out a way to learn neuro-linguistic programming from me so that you could start to experience life the way that I do, if you'd like some one-on-one coaching, or if you would just like to tell me your story so I know a little bit more about you, then go to jessemogul.com/askme. Go ahead, fill out the Google form. It'll send me over an alert. I'll shoot you over an email and a text. We'll set up a time. We'll get on the phone. We'll get on Zoom. We'll get a chance to meet one another, and we'll see what it is I can do to best support and guide you in your journey. So it's jessemogul.com/askme. Blessed be that I am here alive and kicking and breathing. An amazing anniversary into the Rolling Stones, into my birthday, a day before the Tour de France kicks off. It has just been a whirlwind of a month of June. Just like that whole, middle of March to end of April was just a whirlwind. Had another one. Get to take a couple breaths before middle of July starts, and then it just becomes like another sprint to October 1st. But there's no place I'd rather be. And I hope that you can look around at your life each day and at least have a moment where you can say that. There's no place I'd rather be. Let's figure out a way to elongate those moments so you're having them more often. And maybe one day you have a 45-day stretch where you're like, man, I have been busy as hell, but there is no place I'd rather be. Again, if you'd like to know more about that, jessemogul.com/askme. Fill out that Google form. I'd love to meet you. Otherwise, my friends, inclusivity over exclusivity, the power of positive energy, release and flow. Every day is the best day of our lives when we wake up sober. Shout out to Sunshine and Robert. We will see each other next week. Glow on, and bye-bye.